You have a giant sheet behind you.
Yeah, actually, I set this up. There's soundproof
Oh
blankets.
wait, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Oh, and I should probably close the window. Were you speaking of the sheet?
Yes, I was speaking of the sheet. Can you hear me?
I don't give a sheet. That's awesome. What kind of sheet is that?
Um, all right. Well, if we ever get big enough to have sponsors or anything, this is from Vocal Booth to Go. They're a local. Wow, they're a North American company. They're in America. Um, and to be honest, like I think they are trying to market themselves as not being just simply like moving truck, moving van type moving blankets. That's the word I was looking for. But they're very similar. So there's black on one side, white on the other, and Danielle made me put the white facing out because it looked better than the black because it would make everything look dark. And yeah, so that's for the sound reduction plus the panels that are going to be coming up, but I'm taking it slow.
Cool. Did
And
you
yeah,
buy that?
yeah, I bought these.
Okay. How much does one of those blankets go for?
So I think I got them for about 115 for both of them.
Okay.
So that's pretty decent, but I actually didn't realize that they're American too. So it was like it ended up being more plus shipping.
Yeah,
But
so about 150 bucks.
yeah, but I think oh shoot, I don't want to like downplay Vocal Booth to Go. I think I kind of like their company and stuff. And they support local people. Like the reason I found this was because there was a guy on YouTube who I saw, and he was soundproofing his studio.
Yeah.
So I learned about how to soundproof your studio on a budget, and he used these blankets. And then at the same time, it was one of those things where he's like a YouTuber, where he had like an affiliate link or whatever, and so he got paid for having marketed or himself marketing the Vocal Booth to Go blankets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. Although, if you think about this, there is the lower step than what you've gone with. There's just blankets, leftover blankets. The old school egg cartons that people would put on the walls and ceilings and stuff like that. Um, Not saying that a consumer product is a mistake. It's just saying that you add in materials as they come along. I would love something like that. I'm actually even thinking about it right now, but
Oh, when's your birthday?
yeah. I don't know. When's your birthday? You 1 year on your Facebook posted the wrong birthday, and ever since then I've been confused. You did
Well,
that, right? You put like the wrong birthday down.
yeah. Well, I think yeah, I did that, and I put like the date and the wrong year, and then people got all confused, and I was like, well, I should at least put the right date,
Well,
which is June 29th, or the
you're
right time in the year.
you're like the boy who cried wolf, or like the boy who cried birthday. Now no one believes you. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, right. June 29th. Yeah. Yeah, that's I'll believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our mom can never get it right. She thinks it's on the 27th or something.
Oh yeah.
But I kind of get those traits from her because the only birthday I can remember is, well, Charlotte's. It's, a, it's the same birthday as my cousin Sam,
January?
January 12th. And then I know Mom's birthday, June 12th.
June?
Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, it is pretty soon. Well, you know me. I've never been big on birthday celebrations. Not really my bag. I'm not really big on any particular holiday or observance of any sort. I'm not much for ceremony in any particular way.
Hmm.
Um, but whatever.
If you want to buy me some blankets.
Yeah, if you want to send over a blanket. But yeah, those are pretty cool. I imagine they would also have green screens.
Oh, vocal booth to go?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think they're specifically just for sound, like what
yeah.
they actually market. Their
How thick
main.
is it?
It's pretty thick. Like, well, you can't really see it. How thick it is? It's just kind of like a heavy blanket,
Yeah, yeah,
but it is pretty heavy.
yeah, yeah. Like you can't just slap it up on a wall. You do have to take some time to actually mount it properly.
Yeah, like I can sort of tilt the
Just
screen.
drill into the ceiling, or
Yeah, so we have a drop ceiling,
oh, okay. Well, that yeah, that's kind of cool.
so that's really convenient. Whoops, I took the I took some hanger wire
Yeah,
and poked it through, and you can't even notice the hole that it makes. And then I attached it like up above the drop ceiling on a little support beam that runs across.
yeah.
And it was conveniently placed right behind the couch, so that was good. And then on the walls over here, I just used right there just command hooks, like three of them, um, and then on the other wall over there.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's good the blanket has those holes in it. So for a lot of uses, you can use those hooks, which are pretty simple.
Yeah. Oops.
Just trying to think in my place, which is a good corner to do that because it is very well designed for just like an isolation booth.
The your apartment or the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Well, I think that's what these things their main product is kind of marketed in that way. It's for
absolutely. For doing your recordings at home, which is going to be um, an increasing amount is going to be done at home. I got an email asking what equipment I use at home, what I have for doing voiceovers right out of your house.
okay.
So having something like that and a decent microphone, um, that might become a standard thing. And something like that, if you have, say, um, an empty closet, it's like perfect for um, doing voiceovers because then the whole closet is essentially it's like a little cave
Yeah.
for sound. Um, but then there's other parts of spaces that you can just find a corner that's pretty good
Hmm.
and sort of get the corner and have it a little bit behind you as well, so you like open the curtain, go in, um,
Yeah.
so
On their website, they have like a I don't know if it's in the middle of the room or something, but close to the wall. It looks like a shower curtain that just goes around, and
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah. And now, of course, ideally, you'd want to put up tracks so that you can just like slide the whole thing over, with hooks. But then you're getting into another level of investment. And what I've found over the years is anything that anyone does, um, the key decision is always deciding how much are you going to invest, whether it be time or money in your home setups. If you have lots to do, then yeah, you start putting some time and some money into it. But then there's the other side of the spectrum of people that way over invest.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of people that have just all kinds of stuff that they never use,
Yeah.
but you're getting use out of it immediately. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think, you know, I do feel a sense of guilt, especially when you share your finances in a domestic environment, if that's the right way to describe it. You know, it's like the money is not just mine, and my wife's money is not just hers. So when I invest in stuff, I really have to weigh heavily on it. And I think for this, it's like I have a really easy excuse. It's like, well, I'm a music therapist, and right now, like I've been wanting to do stuff like this for years, but and now I have just the biggest excuse to be like, well, I can invest in that. Like, yeah, and that's definitely the way that I look at it too. It's like it's an
Well,
in.
yeah, and you should deduct it from your taxes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and there are a certain number of things that you have to invest in. Like there's my camera there.
yeah.
You
I
know,
was wondering about your camera. What type of camera is that? Like a
well, it's a DSLR camera, which for a lot of uses, it's a little bit outdated for what it, depending on what it does. Everything about equipment is what do you need it to do? That's always the question. What do you need it to do? Um, that camera actually, it's not as convenient for doing setups because you have to focus the camera.
hmm,
So you have to be at the exact distance away from the lens
hmm.
to get the right product. However, that tight focus that it does offer is quite beautiful, and you can make quite high quality video images. Now, I you can't really see it right now because there's too much light, but you see that yellow card there?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll grab it and I'll show it up closer. That's what I call Mr. Focus Face.
Okay. That's awesome.
So yeah, it and then my microphone is on that stand as well. But yeah, Mr. Focus Face is all about me being able to make videos on my own and get the tightest focus possible by putting this sitting where I am, and that's my face.
Yeah.
And then I move this out of the way, and then of course conveniently the microphone is also right there, so I just move it a little bit away when I start shooting. And of course, while the microphone is obviously um, hooked up at that point.
Hmm.
But that was an idea I had to come up with when I was doing work at this place called the Actors Gym, and they had DSLR cameras. Oh, there we can have Mr. Focus Face in the rest of the conversation. Um, and they trained me essentially in all of this. It was a monthly membership where you could use they had 3 studios. They had DSLR cameras, um, decent lights, um, and decent microphones for doing self-tape auditions or just working on material, or just coming in with people and playing around and just becoming a better actor.
Mhm.
And of course, doing workshops and all that kinds of thing. But mostly it would be for self-tape auditions or practicing for high-level auditions
Hmm.
for big parts. Though that would be most of their clientele. They ended up going bankrupt. I kind of knew they would,
Oh.
um, but it was super fun for me. They had good computers with Final Cut 10. That's what I use now. So it was time just to I'd go there like 3-4 times a week and just
Nice.
fart around, make some videos, and get used to it. And so this guy was a requirement to work alone. You don't necessarily always have uh, a scene partner readily available.
Hmm.
You got to be ready to go, well, if someone wants an audition, self audition, and they want it tomorrow, it's already like in the afternoon. Um, who can you call on short notice to, it used to be in the old days, physically come all the way over, work with you and all that, which sometimes is fun and sometimes is cool. But it's also nice to have a way that you can work instantaneously. I don't have to call anyone. I don't have to wait on anyone. I don't have to do the um, customary let's go have a coffee and chat for an hour. I got because often actors' lives they're like super busy, you
Hmm.
know, especially when I was living in Toronto. It's like, well, yeah, I got to be at work 5 o'clock. I'm working 5 till 11, so
Hmm.
I've got a few hours to start setting this up and start like working on the material. And Toronto's a big city. Like the person you want to work with, it's like, well, she's on the other side of town. She's got a busy schedule. So sometimes you just got to be able to pick up and work. So I'm going to turn this over and show you one of my other scene partners on the wall over there. There, you see that face?
On the T-shirt.
Yeah, that's an Andy Kaufman T-shirt. The reason why Andy Kaufman is over on the wall there is when you're working as an actor, you need an eye line.
Mm.
So you set up the camera right beside Andy Kaufman as if there's an actor right there, because that's always how it is. Basically, in any scene, um, you'll have like a camera lens right beside the actor you're working with, and that's how they get the perfect focus on your face. So you're just getting used to that skill of looking not directly at the camera, that's directly at the camera,
Yeah.
but the actor would be right there. So I've got a perfect eye line to that actor right there, and I have to learn how to speak to that person and make it real. This is the scene that I'm in. And when you look away and you're thinking about something, you got to find exactly where they are again,
Ah, cool.
or else the scene doesn't make sense. You're just like looking all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing I was wondering or thinking about was that a lot of people like videos, like Bo of the Fifth Column and people like that because they talk to you as if you're a person,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even in like blog posts and written word type of media too. It's like the people that I don't know if it's the people that succeed, but a lot of people who do well, it's because they communicate their message as if there's someone on the other end that they're actually speaking to, and
Definitely.
that's why I've really wanted to sink a lot into these videos because instead of pretending that you're talking to someone else or talking to someone else, but it could be like an infinite amount of people or not infinite, but a bunch of people. It's like you're actually talking. I'm actually talking to you,
Hmm.
another person, and now people can see the realness of it. Even if there's like awkwardness in it, that awkwardness is still kind of real too.
Oh, that's a great point. The video I did today, there was a moment of awkwardness where I was about to say one thing and then I kind of tripped over the word and then I ended up sort of identifying to the audience, yes, I was about to swear in that moment, but I decided also to just sort of say stuff instead.
Hmm.
Uh, and there were a lot of videos I made in the past where I would just cut, it's like, cut, I'm done, because I messed up that part. But I am reconsidering the style of videos that I'm trying to put out there.
Hmm.
And that was very helpful what you said there to bring up Bo, because Bo is a lot of my template right now. The way he does just sort of talk directly to you.
Yeah.
I think that is something that appeals to a lot of people.
Hmm.
But that also requires a certain skill level of knowing when you're drifting away from authenticity. It's bringing it back, and not worrying about the final product so much as just, being able to talk. Because like you have a list of things that you want to talk about. My problem sometimes is as I have too much to say sometimes, and so I'll often go off on these tangents, and then I'm like, man, I never said anything about that one thing that I was kind of gonna say, because I build all these little pieces of things that I want to say, and then when I actually hit record, a new thing comes out. Um, I wish there were a device just to like hit record every time. It's like just constant record. And
Well,
then anytime you say something neat, you're just like, poof, there it is.
yeah.
So I actually have thought of a device. Actually, it's good I'm wearing a hat. Um, a device that essentially is just like a clipped onto your hat or clipped on down here. That is just it's always I think someone has to invent the device though, that because it's the data management part of it would be crazy if you're
Oh,
just recording all the time. That's not practical. And some people might say isn't it easy enough just to go, oh, click record, and then you say the thing? I don't think
yeah.
that's the same. I think you have to delete the idea of clicking record at all. You have to allow the person just to say the thing that they're going to say, and they say it out loud, and then they're done, and then they realize, oh, that's one of the things. And then it's like, okay, save last 5 minutes. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe technology that does that.
totally.
So maybe like every half hour it just starts dumping the data, unless the user interrupts and says, save last 5 minutes as file blah blah blah.
Hmm.
And then you've got that 5 minutes, and then you can go back, go to your computer, and then just clip it shorter to that thing you said.
There must
Shit,
be.
maybe we just invented something.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, there must be either a way to do it because it doesn't sound too challenging. And I saw a podcast. Of course, you were talking about templates. Joe Rogan is kind of my template, and that's why I like this. But there was again Gary Vaynerchuk talking on Joe Rogan, and he was saying in the future it's going to be all voice command stuff. It's like that's the
Yeah.
the next thing is like um, hit record stuff like that. Well, what I was going to say earlier, which was so hilarious, is you were talking about like a wearable device that you can record whenever you want, and I was literally just freaking thinking of that this morning. I was like cooking my breakfast, and I was like, because a lot of people, it's strange, but on places like Instagram and stuff like that, you might just have people cooking breakfast. That's what they do. Like there's a guy named Jocko Willink, a Navy SEAL guy, and he posts like he's a get up in the morning and work hard type of deal guy. Because of course he's a like commanding officer or something in the Navy SEALs, and he posts a picture of his watch, and it says 4:30 a.m. every single morning, like every single morning, and that's his
Jesus.
mentality, and that's his life. That's who he is. But people like like that. It's just him doing his thing, cooking
Yeah.
breakfast. That's and it's like, oh man, I wish I just had like maybe a mini tripod with my iPhone that I could just set up there. Boop, here we go. I'm cooking breakfast, and that's me cooking breakfast this morning.
Yeah.
Or wearing a headband that I was even thinking of like gives you the image or the viewpoint of my eyes in a way, like one of those GoPros where you put on your head and you're just walking around
Yeah.
doing stuff.
Oh, like outward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your point of view.
Hmm.
Now, what would Max do? or Marcus. What would Marcus do that would people would want, or does it even matter? Let's think about this. Does it even matter anymore what anyone does? Like say what you were saying about what were you saying last time about um, we're just putting ourselves out there and being ourselves,
Hmm.
something along those lines. And does it even matter what anyone actually puts out there? It's just everyone's putting stuff out there. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe I
Oh,
don't have formulated that one at all.
when we were talking about the foundational three things that, like, quality, quantity, and speed. I was thinking about that a
Okay.
lot the other day, or today too. Where it's just like, doesn't matter what you put out, you just put it out as quickly as possible, as much as possible, and then the quality is kind of like that tertiary, you know,
Yeah.
the fancy
Yeah.
fancy stuff. Yeah,
The quality comes along when appropriate. Well, let's attach it to what we were talking about to begin with. The sound blanket adds a certain amount of quality. If you would have run out and bought the sound blanket as your first action in this project, that probably is going backwards.
hmm.
And that's kind of what I was referring to. Is I'll see a lot of people who want to put material out there, but they start from, oh, I need to go to the store.
Right.
It's like, no, you need to get in front of the camera and turn it on. That's always step number one.
Yeah.
You need to start recording something, start writing something that wants to be recorded. Start with the product, and then the product will tell you how much quality does it need.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, because you know what? Maybe this shitty ass frame right now of like these green heads and Led Zeppelin, like maybe people love that. And it's like,
Totally.
no, it's totally perfect. You don't need to change anything at all. The only way you'll know that though is just one step at a time. And YouTube is the place where your audience will tell you. Your audience will tell you if they like what you're doing or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
First by viewing it, and then second by actually telling in the comments.
Yeah.
Like, you should do this kind of video. I want to
Hmm.
see you do this kind of video. But then you also have to be strong enough to know, oh, well, I don't do those videos.
Yeah.
When certain people make certain suggestions.
Hmm. Speaking of which, shout out to Tim, who is doing a
Tim,
lot of comments lately.
oh, on your channel?
Oh yeah, man. Actually, I was thinking about that because now we're posting the same videos on two different channels, and I was like, hmm. Now it's. I mean, yeah,
It
yeah,
is what it is. Yeah, unless there's a large viewership out there, um, it doesn't. It kind of meaningless to me. I don't know
hmm.
about to you. Um, I guess because I've just known uh, the YouTube universe for a while. I'm like, there's just so many random algorithmic factors going on that all of this business is so strange.
Hmm.
um like there is no um perfect formula for success. A lot of the and here's the interesting thing to think about as well, is there's also a generational YouTube experience. uh you can listen to some of the old school YouTubers who have millions of followers and millions of views, yet their suggestions were correct for 10 years ago or for 15 years ago when it started.
Right.
And that's not necessarily true in 2020. So you can watch all the like YouTube creator series videos, like how to make your videos better, how to make them more exciting, how to have thumbnails that are all exciting. And the way I see all of those videos is, oh, YouTube produces these videos to try to make the quality better. And I think we were just talking about, well, the quality comes third.
Right.
And you should start with, you know, just what is the show, you know?
Hmm.
Because they're talking about, because sometimes I get frustrated making thumbnails, even though it doesn't take me long. But you know, but the amount of time, just even just to open up a piece of software, take two JPEGs. That's all I do. Say for one of our videos, I just, you know, I take two simple screenshots. Doesn't take me long. One of you, one of me, and sometimes a photo I find on the internet because I'm like, oh, we talked about libertarians the whole time. So I'm like, oh, uh, you know, pics, libertarian, and then I'm like, oh, that one, boom. And then there's three pictures, a background, some words, and I've got words already set up in the software. You just have to change the words, like letters. I've got letters already designed, and then just. But even just doing that, it's like, man, it's a half hour. It's not like it's it's not like this is you know a paid thing that you're like, oh well, I have a half an hour of paid work to do. You're just like, I just want it done. You
Yeah.
know, and it's not that it's that I wouldn't do it because there's no money in it, because obviously I still do it anyways. um, but I could be doing something else as well, rather than just a repetitive task of building, you know, a thumbnail for your video so that the YouTube audience is more likely to click on your video because, you know, because like the thumbnail looks interesting, even though the thumbnail says relatively little or to nothing about your video. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, like you may as well just put boobs on every thumbnail, and you're guaranteed going to get, you know, a certain number of clicks on your video if you just put boobs on all of them.
Yeah. Which people do.
Yeah. Oh, I know. There's a lot of videos that are like, what the hell? This has absolutely nothing to do with what I just clicked on.
That's
You
like
know?
Derek Scudda's Grand Theft Auto YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and he's like a character that's a chick in a bikini,
Yeah.
and
He is the boobs.
yeah,
He's the boob.
yeah, yeah. There's also something to say too about mental or emotional energy required to execute something so that the next day you still want to do it. You know,
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the better way to say what I was saying.
hmm.
Yeah. Is
Like,
when you go into boring software, and it's like, oh, come on, just hurry up. Just finish rendering, damn it. You know, like, you
yeah,
know, I just, and yeah, it's, you just feel emotionally drained because you're like, ugh, I'm wasting my life waiting for this computer to do something.
hmm. So you mentioned something about almost. I don't know if you said these words exactly, but from what I got from it was defining yourself as a channel or whatever. Um, what do you feel like? What is this channel for you? What are these conversations? What do they? What value do you get out of it?
Oh, I love doing these. Open forum, just talking without giving it a lot of a forethought.
Hmm.
Uh, that's a good skill for me to develop. And for whatever audience I might have, um, I do like having a few things out there where people just actually see me very unfiltered.
Hmm.
Um, and there is a certain amount of personality in this. Uh, and I don't mean having good or bad personality. It's just, it is what it is. And your personality is actually what draws some people in. And so, yeah, I guarantee there's a certain number of people that are just gonna like me, no
Hmm.
matter what I say. They're just been down a similar road or whatever, and they just see eye to eye with what I'm talking about and kind of get along. Um, and who knows? That could be a very large number of people. The challenge to all of this is just getting anyone's attention. That is the biggest challenge. You can do as much quantity and quality and all of that. What's the other one?
Speed.
Quantity with speed, quality, speed. Blah. You can do all of that, but if you just never grab anyone's attention, it just kind of never ever goes anywhere.
Hmm.
And of course, you're up against people who are willing to purchase the viewership.
Right.
Yeah, they're just buying views. Um, and like not everyone can just do that. It's like,
So would you say, is that what people say? For example, I know you can invest in Facebook advertisements. So, and I don't know if YouTube's the same way, whether you can like buy YouTube advertisements or buy YouTube, like increase likelihood that your video will get viewed or clicked on or whatever. It'll send it out algorithmically to other people or whatever.
yep, all of that stuff exists. The internet is a marketplace. There's a video I made about this newspaper called the Epic Times, or Epoch, the word epoch, epic. And they have a video that is what's like called a pre-roll ad on YouTube, one of those ones that comes up before the video that you want to watch. And I just kept seeing it over and over and over again, which makes sense because the algorithms think that I'm a guy that likes to watch videos that involve politics and world issues and history and yada, yada, yada. So it's like, yeah, send Darcy the ad for the Epic Times. He'll probably be interested in this. And then I looked into it further and I'm like, wow, okay, I don't think actually anyone, well, there's probably a certain number of people that read the paper. I don't think it's about that at all. I think they're buying the views and they want people just to watch those videos. This marketing video has 20 million views. 20 million. It's an advertisement. So obviously, a lot of them are just purchased views. And then I started seeing new ones, new commercials that they were making and I'm like, okay, so you got to pay for these views and then you've got to make all of these advertisements as well,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to pay the actors. They're reasonable quality videos. They're not crap. They're not garbage. And I'm like, oh, so the agenda here is not about selling more newspapers. It's about people watching these videos. They don't really give a damn whether or not you buy the Epic Times or not.
Mm.
It's propaganda videos.
Oh, you
Um,
mean not for a product, but for an idea?
Yes, that's what they're actually selling. They're selling the idea. Um, they are extremely critical of the Chinese Communist Party. It's a newspaper that started in China, and they're critical of the Chinese Communist Party. And so it makes sense that right now, when you've got COVID-19, which started in China, that this is the time to get their idea out there. And the
Mm.
idea, to boil it down to the very simplest level, their idea is that communist China is evil. And so that's what I'm concerned about. I am all about being critical of every government. You know, I'm not going to be exclusive about my criticism of Chinese communism versus American corporate tyranny.
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, you got big governments of these big places, and they all have big ass weapons that could kill us all. And it really, I don't differentiate that far between them. And a lot of people I find can't wrap that around their minds. And I find that disturbing of why people feel as though they, I guess, got to pick a team
Hmm.
to be on. Like you're on Team America or you're on Team China. It's like, I ain't on any of those teams. I'm on Team Stay Alive. And try to be nice. I'm on Team Nobody, actually, when you think about it. I'm some nobody out here in the universe. I have like zero influence over those big decisions. So I'm on Team Nobody. So why should I be on Team America, Team China, Team Iran, Iraq, whatever? What I don't understand all of that. I'm on Team Human Being and try to get along for the whatever
Hmm.
many years we have here.
So what would a perfectly run society look like?
Nobody knows the answer to that question.
Hmm.
The most frightening things to realize are very liberating. The most frightening thing to realize is nobody knows what the hell's going on. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody is an expert on anything. It's all a big giant experiment. But we can see the evidence of decisions and we can marginally improve things. I'm glad you offered this session right now because I had just watched your last little video, and when you texted, I was watching Richard Wolff, who's a socialist in the United States, which is extremely rare to be like a Marxist socialist in the United States, a professor at that. And he was talking about the minimum wage. And one of the phrases he used was, I thought, really sort of appropriate because he was talking more about the measure of decency of your society. I'm like, that's a great one. I'm going to tell that to Max. And then you texted. I'm like, it was like, oh, okay. So the minimum wage is not so much that it's that it will work better than a UBI or a UBI over that. Um, I think it's a measure of just decency of like if you're going to ask a human being to help you with whatever enterprise that you're trying to do, you should be able to do the simple math and figure out, well, if I'm going to pay you, that's the deal. I'm going to pay you. And it should at least get to a level that suits the society for having a reasonable amount of dignity in that society. You don't have to pay someone to be, living like a king. But, right now in Canada, our government had to determine quickly because the unemployment system was just not fast enough. They had to come up with a number. They're like, okay, what the hell? We need this Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. What the hell's the number? And they came up with $500 a week.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay. From my point of view, I actually like, that's actually higher than I thought. But then you start thinking, okay, well, if that is what a lot of people think, you basically need $500 a week to sort of get along with a certain level of dignity. You're not living like a king, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If that is the level, then you're like, okay, well, then I guess, you know, 12 to 13 bucks an hour at 40 hours a week, that's probably what the minimum wage should be, somewhere around there. And then is it minimum wage versus UBI? My thought is, well, it's both, and it's based on patient watching the numbers. There have been experiments with UBI, and it's never shown that people refuse work. It's never happened. However, UBI's never happened on a giant scale. It's always been in these local experiments in smaller communities. But now there's countries considering it. And I think it's critical where they where they pick that line.
Hmm.
If it's $500 a week, then I think there is maybe a possibility that it would be a deterrent to work. It would not be a very good incentive. Um, but the problem with those kinds of arguments is they're not actually arguments, they're predictions. They're
Hmm.
predicting the behavior of millions of people. And you never know that until you do it.
Yeah.
So, my thought with we have an opportunity right now where no matter how you slice it, when the serve is done, there is not going to be enough jobs for all the people. Period. There's businesses that have just gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
So not everyone's just going to boom be back. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to say, you know what? Things are just so bad right now. Let's just set a if you got to pick a number, like if, that's the hardest part, picking the number. What do you pick? Do you pick $1,000 a month? There's plenty of incentive to go out and still work if you're only getting $1,000 a month.
Hmm.
Or do you like more? Like, I'm surprised I'm saying this, but I'm like, let's go with like 600 a month. Like that sounds like almost nothing to some people who are big proponents of UBI. But I'm like, well, I think it's enough um, because people are pretty resourceful. I think there's a pretty uh, wide growing gig economy out there and self-employment type stuff that it might mesh very well with the way the private sector seems to be going in that direction. But then I also say, well, it should also be reflected in the public sector as well. Um, I would love to see government jobs start trickling to part time, not so many full time jobs in the government. I
Interesting.
don't, yeah, I think it's, the private sector has obviously made its decision, and the public sector should somewhat mirror that. And then it would be quite normal going forward in the future that people would have several jobs because that's already true. People are having several jobs throughout their career.
Hmm.
Um, and bringing back an idea of casual employment um, and little bits and pieces of employment and parse it out. Um, and gosh, there's something else I wanted to say about it. Oh yeah. A complete reexamination of this whole idea of the hour. Why is the hour the unit that we've decided and stayed with for a long time
Hmm.
for our work?
Like you owe time for money.
Yeah,
Hmm.
we've decided time is the number one determining factor for wage earners. You've got salary earners, some of which it's kind of their time, and others it's not really their time. So why did we stick so solidly with the hours? And I get it, there's businesses, open door businesses where you got to be open for X amount of time to the public. And so I get that part of it. But maybe the hour is a terrible unit. Maybe it's four. Maybe it should be 4 hours. Maybe rather than $12 an hour as our minimum wage, it should be $48 every 4 hours, which kind of exists. Like there are clauses that you have to have people for at least 3 hours in
Hmm.
most provinces. But anyway, I'm going on and on about wages.
Well, I wanted to ask a question about UBI, and I don't
Sure.
know if like people who have thought this out have posed this question. I'm sure they have, but if you are on UBI, or if everyone is getting UBI, and you get a low enough wage where it's enough to survive, but you still want to grow. The incentive to grow is still there. When you start working, does that vanish, or does that stay with you, the UBI? Like, does that?
That's the key element to a UBI is it gets rid of all of that bullshit paperwork of you keep your UBI period. At the end of the year, it's part of your overall taxes. So let's use my number, $600 a month. So that's $7,200 a year. So at the end of the year, you'd have 7,200 UBI line, and then your other T4 from whatever jobs, add it all up, and now you're taxed on the total amount. But your $7,200 is never touched. But the systems we have now, like your employment insurance, if you happen to be on that, if you work, say, a small job one week, you get to work for like one whole Saturday. They will then have a calculation where you get to keep some of it and some of it deducts away from your EI. And it's just complicated and cumbersome. And I get it. I understand why it's there. They don't want people using the system for the majority of their income and then going out and working. And then that's, you're just taking in a bunch of money while you're working. And that's not fair. But then the UBI, the whole idea that makes it work is you get it, no questions asked. You don't have to give anything back. Everybody gets it, rich all the way to poor. And so the rich, they get their UBI, but when it comes to the end of the year, they're going to owe a lot of taxes back on that. Poor, they're going to pay taxes at the end of the year, but they're so poor that they get to keep it all. Does that make sense? Did I get through it all?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the greatest arguments for it is it gets rid of a ton of bureaucracy. Here's one of the awful things. EI it makes a little more sense because you were working, you lost your job, no fault of your own, whatever. Here's something to keep you going. However, what's really awful is our what do we call it here? Social assistance, and in other places they call it welfare. In order to qualify for social assistance, you have to prove that you basically own nothing. You have to have like zero assets. You have to basically own nothing. There's like almost nothing in your bank account. What I mean by that is like less than $1,000 in your bank account, and then you'll start getting social assistance. And in some places, like social assistance is like $800 a month. So, and then if you go out and work while you're on social assistance, I don't know exactly what the calculation is, but they will claw back some of what you earn. And so they reduce your social assistance as you start working. So it makes it excruciatingly difficult for people to get off of social assistance. Because let's say you are making a very pittance amount of $800 a month. We're talking about a lot of people that have not a lot of skills. There's a reason why they're on social assistance in the first place.
Yeah.
And so they go out into the marketplace and they're offered a part-time job at minimum wage, which is about what? $800 a month. But then they take away half of that. So you end up with you're up by, a few $100s a month. It's like you haven't gotten that much further forward. Whereas a UBI, you're making every dollar from that job. So you feel excited about going out and working.
Yeah.
So there's an argument actually to be said that if you hit that right number with your UBI, that you are actually going to incentivize people to work more and to keep trying. And for business people and entrepreneurial people, it's beautiful because a guy like me, I'm like, okay, so I can work hard for the university March, April, May, and I can get as much as I can make. And so, okay, so in June and July, I'm also getting my UBI. Now I'm gonna dump, 1,500 bucks into this project. I'm gonna roll the dice, and hope that it works. And so, and all of that money ends up going back into the economy.
Oh man, that sounds so beautiful. I mean,
Will
yeah,
it
sorry.
work? We have to try it. But thanks for calling it beautiful. It's not my idea.
Yeah, well, no, it sounds like the more we dive into it, the more appealing it sounds. The one thing that I wanted to comment on too, that I think someone was telling me that they like the fact, like I'm not very politically minded, though I'm interested in those ideas because they're very psychologically oriented. Um, and so someone was telling me that they like hearing the different perspectives of you having a more political background of knowledge, and of course you also have the health, the mental health, and that sort of knowledge as well. And then from my perspective, I always look at the psychological aspects of it. I can't really help but think about those aspects. And what I was considering when you were talking about the universal basic income and the incentive, um, it actually incentivizing people to go out and work, and especially if you're on welfare, and it's like the more you work, the more they take away. That kind of thing where you're always stuck at zero. That really drastic. Like, why would I work to get the same amount of money if I didn't work at all? Type of deal, or even less maybe. And I was thinking about trauma. Okay, so said all that. I'm gonna segue into this trauma. And I think there's a huge thing to say about trauma and safety, as in people who uh, have been traumatized, their sense of safety is very dysregulated and disrupted, and it's hard to find that. There always seems to be their baseline cortisol levels are like higher. They're always super agitated to little things like that. Um, and I was thinking about safety for myself because one big thing is that, okay, so Derek, our brother's going back to Nova Scotia now, and whether it be financially or otherwise, or I just like having a support system there. I'm transitioning my support system to people in Calgary, but before, even though me and Derek didn't hang out a whole lot, um, he was still there. He was still a huge chunk of my safety levels, if you know what I mean. That sense of
Yeah,
safety. And part of you knows, like, if you feel a sense of safety, you are more willing to go out and take risks, like that entrepreneurial idea that you were talking about.
yep.
And if you fail, there's less of a harsh blow that you might just die or go go away or something. If you have that sense, that safety net of, I think it would do two things. It would boost the creatives and allow them to flourish, and it would decrease the sense of urgency for some. And yeah, shoot, I thought I had an idea that kind of tied things in really securely, and maybe I'm starting. It's starting to unravel a little bit, but um, I also think as a nation, it would be interesting to do a study, for example, of people's sense of well-being on compared to a country who has UBI and a country that doesn't, to see if the country that does have UBI has a greater sense of empathy, greater sense of well-being, feels safer, is more nutritionally nourished as well. I feel that there could be consequences in that direction as well. And all these periphery consequences of introducing that unconditional safety net of financial safety net for a person. I don't know.
Absolutely. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head right out of the gate. You used the word safety, and that is one of the primary components of the idea of a UBI. Is there is a certain level of safety, and it reduces panic. It reduces bad decision making. This is not an insult, not meant as an insult, but there's studies that prove that people who are in bad situations end up making bad decisions. And hopefully, it would reduce the number of those bad decisions and increase the number of um, potentially positive, risky decisions. The risk to say, yes, I am going to go to school because I have a certain safety level that it may not bankrupt me. And I will have a new marketable skill. I will continue to advance. And here's something that hasn't quite come into the conversation yet is we talk about a UBI in terms of money. We talk about it in terms of currency. And I've thought, well, maybe we're talking about it in too slim of a scope. So a term that I think I invented, it's probably invented by someone else, is not just UBI as universal basic income, but universal basic investment. And if you include, say, education, our education system is a universal basic investment in kids learning to
Mm.
not be, stupid. Well, to give them enough skills that they can be productive members of society. So we already have a universal basic investment in education. We already have a universal basic investment in healthcare. We don't have a universal basic investment in nutrition. Maybe we should look at
Oh
something
man.
where everyone has access to fresh vegetables from their community. Maybe that could be a form of UBI that you have. Maybe, we want a universal basic investment in financial literacy.
Mm.
Anyone at any age can go to the local school, and there are night courses for everyone to teach them better financial literacy and help them through their economic problems. Wow, that's a universal basic investment in, having a smarter society. These things are cool. So this idea that it all has to be a discussion of like, oh, it's $1,000 a month. That's what universal basic income is. It's like, no, that's not what it is at all. It's actually, when you look at it at a wider spectrum, a universal basic investment in all of our citizens to try and advance them. And so this is why I'm actually a proponent of, I picked $600 because I was put on the spot in this video, but I would actually even start it a little bit lower. I'd be like, what the hell? Let's just say $300 a month for everyone, and you get a fresh vegetable card, and so you can get as much vegetables and fruits, and you get like $100 credit every
Hmm.
month. So we're gonna have everyone eating healthier, and they have a certain amount of money to participate in the economy. Because money, if you don't have money, you can't participate in the other activities. And we'll
Right.
see what happens. And then the whole key to it, however, is you got to write into the bill, after 6 months we will evaluate. Well, 3 months, 6 months, a year, we will reevaluate the success of this program, and then we will change those lines accordingly.
Hmm.
If $300 a month and $100 worth of good nutrition seems to uplift the whole society, we can go, great, it works, and we don't need to make it higher. Or it's like, yeah, we still got a lot of people who are not advancing, but it hasn't deterred anyone from working. Well, let's bump it up to $500. And then you do that every 6 months, and also evaluate whether or not people are willing to pay enough taxes to keep it going. And
Right.
that's the other side of it is, are people going to participate in both ways to see that you can be a recipient of the investment, or you can be a contributor to this investment, but also see how making a contribution to all of the citizens may actually benefit yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because all of those people that used to live on the streets, they actually now have apartments. And some of them are like, wow, I actually have a part time job now, and I can keep the money from that part time job. And I can actually call up that guy, Marcus Wood, and I can get him to teach me how to play guitar, and I can pay him money. So now all of a sudden you have a business that you didn't have before. And if all these people that were like down on the bottom on social assistance and welfare and all that, now they're actually sort of like, wow, we can actually go to a restaurant and have a meal.
Mm.
And they are are down here, you know, the poorest people. Where are they going to spend their money? Are they going to spend it in the Bahamas? Nope. Are they going to spend it in Australia? Nope. They're going to spend it in Canada. And not only in Canada, they're going to spend it in their local community,
Mm.
very close to themselves, because they're not driving around, you know, oh, we're just going to, you know, we're in Nova Scotia. We're going to just drive to Montreal this weekend. No, they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be supporting their local businesses in their local communities. And maybe we can go back to a time where people actually were like, hey, kid, I'll give you $10 to mow my lawn. That
Mm.
doesn't happen anymore. It used to happen back in my day, but those days seem to be gone. They've all drifted away, because now we've got these giant corporations that will sell Joe Blow the the franchise to cut people's grass. So Joe Blow has to go into debt. And he's got to go to the bank. He's got to get $50,000 so he can give $40,000 to the franchisor guy. And it goes to lawyers' fees and franchise fees and all this shit. Now he's a business owner, but he's not making a lot of money because he's got to now hire people and be a business person to go cut people's grass. But in the old days, you know, we were just like, hey, here's money, cut the grass. But now it's this whole complicated thing, and it's all about trickling money away from the local community and up to this franchise guy somewhere who lives in the Bahamas all the time and doesn't actually contribute anything to our society. I don't want to put like all big business people in a bad light, but when you know, when we've gotten to this point, the businesses, the corporations have gotten so large that you got to wonder, well, how did that happen? It's like, well, obviously, the system of lawyers and contracts and all of that trickles all the money away from the local community. It's like, wait a second. Sure, I get it. Jim Treliving invented Boston pizza. That was a long time ago. Like, I don't quite understand the connection between an invention of Boston pizza being so remarkable and special in the universe that he still continues to reap tons of rewards from it. It's a fucking pizza. Like, it's not rocket science here. Sure, they built it into a system. And that system, you can go to Boston Pizza all across the country and have the exact same thing. But is it really that special of a product? No, it's just repeated product over and over and over again. And it's the words that made them money, not the pizza. It's the words in the contracts. It's the words in the franchise agreements. It's the words in the agreements with the suppliers. It's the words. So for people out there who think communication is not important, oh my God, communication is the most important thing. Because it's the words that decide all of these things. So, and maybe that's what people have forgotten, that it is the words that decide everything that exists in our community. And we can decide to decide differently than the words that exist. And I think we're trapped right now in 2020, holding on to this system that we've been using since the French Revolution, and having such faith that it's that this is the system that's absolutely correct, and that you cannot question the beauty and the perfection of the capitalist system. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think there's a ton of merit to freedom of choice and movement and commerce in the capitalist system. However, the capitalist system now has a ton of words. It's all these words. Now, Steve, here's something really interesting. Someone on the left side of the spectrum will use entirely different words to say the exact same thing as people on the right side of the spectrum. They'll say, well, it's all the regulations. Yes, it's all the words. It's all the words. And then someone on the left side of the spectrum is like, yes, the words have favored a certain small group. And that's the problem with capitalism, and they're intertwined with each other. You cannot have government and corporations without each other. They're two arms of the same beast. Whereas some people are like, oh, it's all the government's fault. It's like, actually, they're kind of cooperating on this one because they cooperate and they compose those words together. So you can't, if you're like, I'm anti-regulation. Yeah, well, they wrote the regulations specifically for themselves. They regulate themselves. Anyways, that's my bit on regulation for today. I hope y'all have a good night. Like internet people. Hello, all you internet people. I wonder where he's actually from.
Beau of the fifth column, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know where he is.
Yeah, it sounds very down south. I want to check our time because I think I should probably.
Yeah, it's getting close to an hour, and it's my gaming night, so.
Oh, all right.
I kind of gotta like think about some dinner and maybe a shower.
All right. Well, that felt very engaging, which was nice. I feel like we could go 1,000 different ways with it too, but maybe we'll have a follow-up on the UBI, Universal Basic Investment.
Yeah, thank you. It is a term that I invented because I didn't know if anyone else has used it out there. So I would love to find it somewhere out there in the universe and go, okay, I wasn't the only one who thought of it in that term. All right, I'm Darcy. I'm somewhere in the east.
Now, Marcus, I'm somewhere in the west.
Hiya! Oh, and Mr. Focus Face.
Mr. Focus Face is here too.
Ow, 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 ow. Stop poking my eye. Stop poking my eye. I'm leaving now. Goodbye. Did I leave yet?
No, you didn't leave.
Oh,
there was a funny video last time where you like left and I wasn't expecting it and I was like, oh.
That was great. You sat just perfectly still for a moment.
And this time I was expecting that to happen. I was going to fake it, and then the opposite happened. And now I'm like, oh.
Oh, I faked you out. Okay, bye.